The alarm went off at 6 a.m., but Eli Walker hit snooze. Just 5 more minutes. 5 minutes turned into 20. The day started late, and he already knew that plan was going to be pushed back again. Eli wasn't weak. He wasn't lazy. He was just tired. Mentally, emotionally, he knew something had to change. But every time he closed his eyes, he told himself, tomorrow, I'll start tomorrow. The problem, tomorrow, doesn't come with a date, no set time, and most of the time, it never shows up. Eli spent hours scrolling through his phone, comparing his life to people who looked like they were winning, while he was just existing. He had dreams, ideas, a purpose he couldn't even explain in words, but it burned deep in his chest. And still, nothing changed, because between what he wanted and what he actually did was a giant gap called later. Eli thought he needed motivation. Thought one day he'd wake up full of energy, clear-headed, ready to flip his life upside down. But that day never came, and it never would. Life doesn't hand you perfect moments. It hands you now, raw, messy, but full of possibility. Eli realized that too late. It was on an ordinary day. One of those gray days where everything feels the same, but that's when it hit him. He looked in the mirror and saw a man who knew what needed to be done, but wasn't doing it. And in that moment, it wasn't some feel-good quote that changed everything. It was a brutal truth that sliced through his mind like a knife. There is no tomorrow. No plan survives inertia. No dream lives in later. You don't have guarantees. You don't have control. You only have now. And everything you don't do today, you might regret for the rest of your life. Eli Walker didn't want to be a spectator in his own life anymore. He chose to get up, not because he was ready, but because he finally got it. There is no tomorrow, only now. Eli Walker spent most of his life running from real talk with himself, running from mirrors, running from the hard decisions. He always knew what he had to do. Deep down, he always knew, but he always found a way to push it off. He'd say it was a lack of time, but he spent hours on his phone. He'd say he was tired, but stayed up all night doing things that didn't matter. The truth? Eli wasn't tired. He was scared to try and fail, scared to try and realize maybe he wasn't good enough, scared to step out of his bubble and face the reality that life doesn't make it easy for anyone. But the thing that hurt Eli the most wasn't the fear of failure. It was the weight of living below his potential. You owe something to yourself. You owe you, not your family, not your friends, you. Every day you stay quiet, hide, self-sabotage. You're stealing from yourself. Eli started to realize that the pain of discipline, of effort, of showing up every day was nothing compared to the pain of regret. He broke promises, lied to himself 1,000 times. I'll start Monday. This year will be different. I'll focus later. But he always ended up in the same place. Square one. The cycle was eating him alive. And he knew if he didn't change now, he'd live and die as just a shadow of who he could have been. And that's when it hit him. Time wasn't the issue. Luck wasn't the problem. It was him. It had always been him. The enemy was in the mirror. Eli Walker realized he either got up right then, or he'd be just another face in the crowd, hiding behind excuses. The world doesn't give you what you wish for. It gives you what you build. And that starts when you stop running and decide to face the truth. Discipline, courage, consistency. 3 words that change destinies. Eli chose to fight. What about you? Still gonna keep running? That morning, Eli Walker woke up before the alarm. No plan, no script, no clue where to start, but he'd made a decision. He'd never be the same again. There was no big comeback speech, no applause, just him and the silence. An ordinary man with an extraordinary will to change. He didn't know if he'd make it, but for the first time, that didn't matter. Eli understood the key wasn't feeling ready. It was acting even when you're unsure, even when you're scared, even when everything inside you is screaming, wait, because action is the cure for stagnation, and discipline is the antidote for excuses. He didn't wait for motivation. He created movement. Eli started small, 1 step, 1 decision, 1 yes to himself. He knew real transformation wasn't going to come from some magical breakthrough, but from 1,000 small choices made over and over again. And with each choice, each effort, each moment, he said, I'm keeping at it today. Yesterday's version of Eli started to die, and the Eli he wanted to become was being born. Hard work, discipline, consistency, mindset. Words that once were just captions on Instagram now ran through his veins. He didn't need anyone to believe in him anymore, because finally, he believed in himself. The real turning point doesn't happen when the world around you changes. It happens when something inside you does. Eli Walker stopped being a prisoner of tomorrow and became the architect of now. Now or never. That was his new motto. And this time, he chose now. The first few days were the hardest, but Eli Walker kept going. Even when he was tired, even with 0 results, even when no one was watching. While the world kept spinning in distraction, He was grinding in silence, waking up before the sun, saying no to anything that didn't add value, swapping excuses for discipline, trading distraction for direction. Eli wasn't the same anymore. Not because something outside him changed, but because he changed how he responded to everything. He stopped complaining, stopped looking for shortcuts, stopped waiting for applause. He realized success isn't luck. It's dirty work. It's doing the same thing again and again and again until it becomes second nature. The voices in his head said, "You're not good enough. You'll quit like always. You always quit." But this time he didn't answer. He just kept going. Because in the end, what separates those who do from those who just dream is the ability to keep pushing even when everything still looks the same. Progress was slow, but it was real. Every tiny step forward was a personal win. Success wasn't some far-off fantasy anymore. It was in every solid step he took toward his best self. Gym motivation? His gym was his mind. Self-control. The daily battle against the old version of him. Eli was building a new standard, a new path, a new story. Now he didn't need to prove anything to anyone because he knew what he was building. And more importantly, he knew who he was becoming. The discipline that once felt like punishment now felt like freedom. The pain that once held him back was now shaping his character. Eli Walker wasn't trying to change his life anymore. He was changing his identity. Transformation doesn't end when you decide to change. That's when it starts. Eli Walker wasn't living on autopilot anymore, but now came a new challenge. Keeping the fire alive every single day, even without excitement, even without motivation. He learned there's no magic formula, just ritual, routine, responsibility for his own growth. Waking up early wasn't a win anymore. It was standard, training, learning, evolving. It wasn't effort, it was identity. Because when you truly change, action stops feeling like a burden and starts becoming part of who you are. Every single day, same time, same focus, same commitment. While the world gets distracted, he stays locked in. While others chill on small wins, he keeps building because now he gets it. Greatness isn't one big moment. It's the result of 1,000 decisions made in silence. Discipline is freedom. His routine was what kept him free. Free from guilt, free from doubt, free from the old version of himself. Eli became the kind of guy no one sees shining on stage, but everyone respects behind the scenes. He didn't need to prove anything anymore because every day, by doing what had to be done, he proved everything to himself. The warrior's routine doesn't have glamour, but it's got purpose. It's got grit. It's got truth. Eli learned the secret most people never figure out. You don't grow when you feel like it. You grow when you show up even when you don't. Every single day. Eli Walker didn't become a millionaire. He wasn't on TV. No one handed him trophies. And still, he won. Because the biggest win in life is being able to look back and truly recognize who you've become. Eli knew who he was, and that alone was more than enough. He didn't need anyone's approval anymore because he'd learned to respect himself, to listen to himself, to stay grounded even when the world screamed otherwise. He stopped being driven by pain and started being led by purpose. Before, he just wanted to shut down the voices that doubted him. Now, he just wanted to hear his own conscience at peace. Before, he wanted to prove he could. Now he just wants to live with truth. Eli doesn't live out of urgency anymore. He lives with presence, with intention, with clarity. That boy who once lived in fear now inspires, not with speeches, but with posture, and without needing to be loud. He left a mark, not on the whole world, but on the world of everyone who crossed his path. That's the kind of legacy no one can take away, the transformation no one saw, but he felt. It wasn't about changing everything on the outside. It was about changing everything on the inside. Eli Walker didn't become a hero, but he became whole. He became present. He became an example. And that is more than most people ever allow themselves to be. This was Eli Walker's journey. But now the question isn't about him. It's about you. How many times have you looked in the mirror and known you were meant for more? How many times have you promised yourself you'd change, that you'd start, that this time would be different, but you kept falling into the same habits, the same excuses, the same cycle? There is no tomorrow. You already know that. And if you've made it this far, it's because something deep inside you is already waking up. Don't wait anymore. Don't wait to be ready. Don't wait for the fear to go away. Go with the fear. Go without knowing. Go however you can. Just go. Because if you keep putting it off, you'll live your life incomplete. Alive on the outside, dead on the inside. And nobody deserves that. Especially not you. You owe you. You owe that version of yourself. The one that gets up, takes charge, builds, wake up, make today count. Now or never. These aren't just catchphrases. They're soul-level reminders. Now it's on you. Are you going to keep watching stories? Or are you finally going to start living yours?